guys can repost, it would be super sweet, because that's how we will gain more audience. Because now on X you can't put reminder on live stream, so we can put it on their own spaces. So we a bit can meet people who actually want to watch it. And while we're slowly gaining audience, let's introduce ourselves, and I will start with me. And I'm just blogger on X, and I love to explore art very much. This is one of my passions, if I can say so, and all my life connected with culture, IRL, and in crypto too. So I'm super excited to talk about art with you, Brian, because I really admire by your art at first. You like connecting super good stuff with you. Firstly, your art is super good on the highest level, and everything looks amazing. Secondly, when I send you art and that we will have interview with you, people like, oh, I earn good money on Brian. So you actually, freaking value from this side. And thirdly, when I joined your Discord, when I bought Bloom collection, it was my first collection that I bought. I was like super welcome at there, and I felt myself so comfy. So I'm really happy to see you with us today and talk about your art. But at first, let me pass the mic to my co-hosts, Hunt and Talf, who wants to be first and introduce.
I'll go first. I'm Talf. I spoke to Brian for several months now. We used to chat on Nifty Council, Nifty Gateway, and we just love art. Well, I personally love art, and so does Brian, obviously. And
hell yeah. I'm Hunt. Hi. Building singular, having some fun in the space, collecting, vibing. Love art, brought me in here, obviously. First thing I did on the blockchain was mint a piece of art. In 2021. I was late. But love your work, Brian. Love your setup.
Not that late.
Pretty late, man, in comparison. Some of these people I'm talking to are wild. But I love your setup, bro. It looks like a creative genius's workspace.
Thank you. I should have turned on my screen.
No, I like this. Leave it like this. I like the guitar in the background.
Oh, thanks.
Hell yeah.
No, if you will turn on something there, as a person with ADHD, I will watch something on your TV. Just you, it's enough. And how are you doing right now? Because I see you're the most of the active, I think, NFT artists, and how you managed to do this, and at the same time be so productive with your art, because you're collaborating with big brands, you're working, all the time, and at the same time you're active socially too, if we could say so.
Well, I think similar to you, I have ADHD, so I think this space is kind of built for people like us, where there's just always something going on, and whether it's working on art over on this screen, or looking at Twitter on this screen, or talking in my Discord over here, there's always something to distract me in a nice way. It's all fun distractions, and so I think that's where I never really felt like that crazy burnout that sometimes if you do the same thing too much, you get burnt out. With this space, like if I get tired of my own art, I can just go look at other people's art and start collecting art over there, and like watching shows about like what's happening in the market, because it's just a very fascinating space. And as it's continued to grow, there's been more and more content like this show, for instance, where you can just keep learning more and more and diving deeper.
No, that's interesting that you tell about it as a show, and you actually started working with show, right? When I read your biography, you even worked with Jimmy Fallon and it's big shows, etc. How you decided to quit this? How to say? Media space, and start something on your own. Maybe you can tell us about the start of your way and how you entered crypto.
Yeah, I mean, the first 15 years of my career was working in like television and commercials and animated TV and late night television and all that stuff. And so, while I was doing those jobs, I was always doing art on the side, whether it was making, physical work for galleries out in LA, or doing music videos or posters for things, and screen printed t-shirts, anything and everything I could to be creative. When I found NFTs, that was just another extension of, oh, here's what I saw as being like the next Tumblr. I can go make my art and post it over on SuperRare, and people might be into it, and I can go connect with artists. And this is like a fun little place to create for, especially because as an animator, there was never a way for me to like sell animations. And so when I saw Killer Acid selling animated GIFs on SuperRare, it clicked immediately. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a new world that allows my medium to be accessible. And so that was, I saw it as kind of just a little side project at first, and a fun challenge to like, maybe I can make a piece of art once a week and see how this goes. And
wait, what year it was? What year?
That was the very beginning of 2020. And so then COVID happened, and I was like, oh, now I don't have to commute in the morning. I have more time. There was periods where you're like, oh, what do I do with all my free time? You can't go out and hang out with friends. And so I got much more invested in like crypto voxels and connecting in Discords and meeting all these people online, since my in real life was like pretty dead for a period of time. And I went down the rabbit hole. I got very, invested in all these aspects of the space. And then like a year later, I'd started to see that effort find success. I had done a Nifty Gateway drop. I had done an Art Blocks drop. And then, about a year into that journey, I started to see enough, attention and people collecting my work that I, thought, oh, this, if people are paying this kind of money for my art, I should be focusing full time on this. And two, I think, it's just a matter of, I had done those jobs for 8 years and all that. It was really hard to juggle all of these things at the same time. And I think it's the artist's dream that we've all had, is being able to make a career doing whatever you want. And so the fact that there was that opportunity given to me, it felt like a no-brainer to at least give it a try and see if it worked out.
I'm curious, what music videos did you work on? You mentioned briefly that you did some.
Yeah, I did a few. I worked on, some indie bands like The Good Life. I did a music video for them called The Troubadours Green Room. I did a music video for Sesame Street. I worked on a few with other people. I did visual effects for some like rap videos for like the rapper Future and stuff like that when I was working at different jobs and stuff like that. And so I picked up a few here and there, but those were always kind of fun. There was a band called ... But yeah, nothing that was like on MTV or anything big like that. But it was just a fun outlet because people would say, here's a song, make something. And it became just this fun challenge.
Did you have some art that you even didn't believe that people ask you to paint, at the start of career, of course? Did you have something like, you didn't want to work on rap video or something like that, for example, but you did because of money, for example? Like, did you have something maybe that you're embarrassed right now or something like this?
Something I worked on that I'm embarrassed about?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. Probably. I don't know. Yeah, I used to work on a lot of like bra commercials when I was working in fashion advertising, and those are not the most cool things to have in my portfolio anymore. But yeah, I think I never looked at these things as like embarrassing as much as like each one was its own like challenge, and lessons were learned, and all, you grow from each of these things, and whether they're successful or not, I got, like you said, working on television shows, there is this weird moment where there was things I worked on that got millions of views, like that Sesame Street music video I made. I think that has like 19 million views on YouTube and stuff like that. And those are the kind of things that I don't think about in the time, but 6 years later, they're probably one of my most visibly seen things I've ever made. But a lot of those things, people don't look at them and go, who animated this? When I work at, on television shows, almost nobody's watching the credits at the end to see who the motion graphics artists are on those things. So they were all kind of, you know, you're working with teams. You know, so music videos I liked because they were just me. But when you're working on television shows, you're working on a team, and you know, any of those shows have 100 to 200 to 300 people all working as hard as they can in their very specific fields to make these things happen. And so that one, it's more of like a group mentality of like, hey, we did it together, and it's very fun in that sense.
You know, I kind of can feel you because I work with media all my life as well. But I worked with magazines and also then with events. And I wish everyone, like from myself, to work in this field because it's so interesting. You know, people are so unique, so weird, and every time, like every day, happening some action. So I feel exactly that. Like now, I work on myself, and I feel a bit isolated. You know, sometimes I feel like I missed this action that was before in my life. So that's why I feel sometimes I recreating it right now, working on myself with all this, you know, podcasts, etc. So maybe that's why you are also so active, you know, on other podcasts, etc. Because our common, you know, past given a science, you just can't not work with media anymore if you worked one.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, there is like, it is ingrained, like this want to create content in some form or another, I suppose, whether it's I try to put out a few tweets a day, or I do a show with my buddy Adam where we interview artists like most Fridays. And yeah, there is this kind of like, you know, I don't know what the urge is, but there is just, it's all part of being creative, whether it's making art for an NFT or whether it's making, you know, drawing. I draw live to stand-up comedy. I'll be doing that on Saturday in Brooklyn, where it's like improv drawing to stand-up. And so like, you know, all of these things are different creative outlets that scratch different itches, and like putting myself in various states of like unease because I don't, you know, I have a bit of stage fright. I don't necessarily think I'm like the host of, you know, I'm not a talk show host, and I've always been a behind the scenes kind of person, but it's fun to put yourself out there and make yourself a little uneasy in that sense.
Yeah, I'm the exact same as you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm the exact same as you. I'm more behind the scenes personally, but Iris dragged me out here.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Now that we've got you in public, Brian, let me ask you, what's the I read a Nate Alex post a few weeks ago about how there haven't really been any improvements, or there hasn't been any like creativity on top of the NFT standard for art. We've seen things like the 6551. We've seen, you know, upgradable contracts. We've seen people have like treasure hunts, and obviously we saw Jack Butcher with checks, but there hasn't really been any evolution to the NFT standard in art. What would you want to see? What do you think is possible? Or is there anyone building something that we should keep our eye on? Or is it more about just having digital representation and ownership of an art piece?
Well, in terms of NFT standards, I mean, Transient's done some interesting stuff with their kind of story inscriptions built into the NFT that allow you to put some backstory behind the NFT. What I find more interesting now is when I see artists, again, working within these constraints, whether it's ordinals and how to do the most with an ordinal, or how to get on chain on Ethereum. Like I think of like Felix's Cypher dudes, and how they're, you know, that's not a new token standard, but it's an on-chain NFT on ETH that you can put a secret message into, encrypt it, and then let people look at that NFT and use your code to see that, and like it you know, you can upgrade it and do all these other things. So, you know, just like when I started on SuperRare in 2020, back then you could only do animated GIFs, you couldn't do video, and so it was like, how do you get the most into 50 megabytes of GIF? And there's this like challenge of working within the constraints. And so, you know, I don't think most artists in this space are going to be able to craft a whole new token standard. It's always going to be about kind of working within the playgrounds that were given to a degree. But I do think, you know, with code and HTML, like Transient's doing a lot with dynamic NFTs that you can really inject a lot of HTML code into it. I did a drop with them like a year ago that changes every hour. Like, I think those are the kind of things that are more interesting to me because, there's going to be these crazy mechanics over time, but I'm looking at like, how do we make what we have currently the strongest it can be? But yeah, who's to say what will be next? I'm certainly an ETH-maxi, but there's at least a decent chance that what will be the art blockchain is still up for grabs in many ways. And like long term, it'll probably be whichever one allows you to truly be on chain for a cheap cost. And that doesn't quite exist yet. And so I think it's always going to be a matter of evolving, and things will continue to improve. It might be an L2 on ETH. It might be some other, SUI or something to say, or, who knows? So I'm always open to, things improving, because even just being here for 5 years so far, I've seen it evolve so quickly. And I do think, I don't know, I find the improvements happen when the market gets crazy. And we had a lot of people building during the crazy bull run, and a lot of that building is kind of slowed down, and there's only a handful of people still trying to build right now. And so I'm hoping that increases.
I like that. As far as new artists on the horizon, or someone who's coming up, or someone that's making a resurgence, who are you looking at? What are you collecting? Who are you hoping to work with? Who are some of your favorites in the space?
I'm looking at my wallet right now for inspiration on this answer.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. I even saw that you have Bryan Vault.
Brinkman.
What? Tell us about this.
Oh, I mean, well, I love to collect art. I mean, as you see, I have shelves of stuff. I've always been a collector of random stuff. It used to be screen prints and vinyl records and whatever, and then it became like Rocket League parts. All these different things. And so, like, I've always been putting a portion of the money I make back into collecting other art, because I think that's one of the more fun aspects, is the relationship we have with other artists. Kind of talking into what Hunt Club was saying, I think in terms of, right now, the last thing I think I minted was Adam Rhinotic's Token Works, which isn't even art, but it's a blueprint for what artists can do, which I don't know if you guys have followed that project, but it's basically, it was 250 soulbound tokens, 1 ETH each, that basically give you a 1-year subscription to whatever he's building as a developer. And
that's pretty cool.
World, with the caveat that if you want to get out, you can pull out like 90% at any time. So right now, if I wanted to pull my ETH back, I'd get 0.9 ETH out of it. And that is like, basically you're investing in this artist for a year. And if they deliver, they keep the money. And if they don't deliver, you take it back. I think that's a really interesting dynamic that artists are going to start to use as a way of building almost like a Patreon subscription, but it's on chain and it's, crypto enabled. I think that's really exciting. And then,
that's pretty amazing, but also, sorry for interrupting you, but also it's so stressful, no, for the artist. Like you need to, don't ruin expectations and everything. Like, isn't it harder to create when you have this pressure on you?
I don't know. That's a good question. Is it harder to create with subscribers, or is it harder to do 12 drops a year and keep up that routine? I don't know. I'm speaking of artists I collect, I just signed up for year 2 of Panther Cheetah's project called the 12, which is another similar concept, which is she gets 12 collectors. Each one, I think, puts in like 1.5 ETH, which gives her enough money to create for the year. And then throughout the year, she drops, I think last year it was like 6 editions of 12, and each person got a 1 of 1. And those are raffled off each month to the holders. And basically, she's basically making her money for the year, and then she's only beholden to these 12 people and doesn't have to release art anywhere else. and all those people are along for a ride. There's no refund aspect to that. And so I think that that's another interesting dynamic that frees up the artist to be creative without having to worry. Because like myself personally, I'm looking at my next few months. I'm doing like 4 drops with different platforms, trying to get them all aligned so they're not overlapping and it doesn't feel like I'm doing too much at once, and making sure each one, you know, it becomes a big, not headache, but it becomes a challenge to like fit all these in, because one will say, hey, actually we got to push that back a month, and then it conflicts with the other thing and you're trying to like do all this stuff. If I had full control over it, it would be less stress on me and less expectation, as long as I'm continuing to create my outputs. And so, you know, I think there's something interesting there. And I think that token works is a way of doing it that's just a more soul-bound way of doing it. There's, you know, it's kind of like a revamp of the membership pass meta that kind of came out like 2 or 3 years ago. And then, yeah, I think, you know, the artists I'm looking at right now, I'm always learning from what's successful. And one artist that I've started collecting a bunch of is Modest, who I think most people have probably seen on the timeline recently. He's doing a lot of really interesting mechanics, whether it's doing like he puts out dailies. I think they're like glitch AI essentially, but he puts out dailies, puts out editions, puts out one-of-ones, puts out series, and he's constantly doing all these different things. And he's using that similar to like say Jack Butcher, where he's on the timeline every single day because he's got this big rabid collection of collectors that are all excited about it, and he's constantly putting out new content. And so I'm always, you know, I've been looking at him recently as kind of a prototype, because like you said, a lot of artists will come to me and say, hey, how do I approach this space? And like there's the Sam Spratt route, where you go, oh, only put out one of one every 3 months for the first year, and then do a very small group and create your team of collectors and then build outwards. And that's one aspect. That's kind of the more traditional art gallery way of doing it, where it's very, very hard to get into FOMO based squeeze. And then there's the Jack Butcher and maybe the Modest, which is an abundance way of kind of utilizing the space's network effect to make all these collectors your street team and have them help market for you. And so, yeah, and I find myself somewhere in between the two, where I'm trying to be scarce, but also have a lot of entry points to keep growing collectors. Because I think over time, a lot of the collectors in the space clock out, whether they're selling off or whether they're just doing something else. We can't rest on our laurels of having collectors from 2021 or 2022. You have to keep being active and pulling in new support from people that are actually active on the timeline.
Yeah, I think you handled 2021 well. I was curious, like, how did you stop yourself from falling into the open edition temptation, let's say? Or, yeah.
I don't know. I think, well, again, watching other artists and seeing what works and what doesn't work. The thing that scared me from open editions early on was like, you know, the people that found success early, whether it was Alpha Centauri Kid or Delu Crace or Degens or Nest Graphics, like those guys did it and made a lot, but then they were beholden to create, and Xcopy was another great example with Max Payne. They all were forced to keep looking backwards and supplying and burning and doing all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, I was worried about that being stuck always. And some of those artists were able to like, here's the full set and now we're done. And like they did that. And some of those artists are still kind of stuck trying to get burns out of those things and making those collectors happy, because, you know, even though these collectors are buying these $20 editions, they expect a roadmap of future stuff forever. And so I think that's where I get a little, you know, that was a scary part of it. And the other part is when you're a notable artist, and I'm not saying I'm the top of the top, but I'm notable to the point where if I did an open edition that was cheap, it would over mint to the point where that edition would probably be more total supply than all of my NFTs combined. And that, because I only have like 5,000 NFTs. And so it's very easy to lose hold of it. And then that NFT would define me, because that would be the most traded, most visible thing that people are sharing all the time. And if you think about it, like Max Payne or Axe Skull Studies or any of these things are their most notable pieces. And that scared me in terms of like, oh, I don't want to have that, unless I feel really, really strongly about it. I don't want my most notable piece to be this thing that's always like the floor piece.
So you think you did? I'm at first. I want to say sorry because now it's celebration in my country, and my dog is scared, so she started barking. She just want to be with you guys on the same screen. It's possible to. But so you think you didn't create the most noticeable art yet, right? So you think you will create something more? Something.
I would like to hope that I haven't made my best work yet. That's always the hope.
Wouldn't we all? Yeah, I like that one. So you're not a fan of this tokenize everything kind of movement happening.
But guys,
like on-chain is the new online.
I think, like, I'm not big on like rodeo or those things because, again, those would be my most traded visible things, and most people on there are putting their like side, like rough works on there or something. Yeah, I do think minting is a responsibility. You're, as an artist, you're essentially like minting money. You're putting this art and you're building value and minting it onto the blockchain. And it's our responsibility to make sure that it holds the value, at least of what we sold it for. It's not always possible to do that, but that's my feeling about our responsibility as artists, is to make sure that we're not, we're putting as much value in as we take out. And I think when it comes to that kind of stuff,
that's interesting.
If you mint everything, then nothing has value.
What do you mean create value? Because I never thought about it. And to be honest, when I'm buying artists, I never, like small artists, not collection, okay? So I never think like I need to resell it, It's a luck if I could earn on art, but I never think about it. And I also feel like it's a bit maybe stressful to think from the artist side, like, oh, I need to create value. And they are perfectionists, in general, but and thinking like, oh, I need to create some value. Isn't it stopping people? And how do you think you create this value? Because most of the artists, they telling us they just create art and that's it. If you like it, you like it. That's it. So how, on your opinion, it's really interesting how you creating value for your art. How it's
well, one, I think part of that comes from being in the space, seeing some of my art that I sell for here, and then it resells up here, and then it comes back down. I feel happy for the people that sold for a profit, and I feel bad for the people that lost money on it. And so there's always this balance to like every story of like a win or a loss. And as an artist, you're a part of both of those stories. And so each one matters to me. And yeah, in terms of the value you bring as an artist, I think, you're creating art that has emotional value to the collector. Hopefully they're buying it because they connect with it and they like it. The value that they get maybe because they want to have a connection with you as an artist, and whether it's getting into a DM and talking with them or meeting them or sending them, a pin in the mail or, whatever it is, there's an emotional human connection of value there. There's a value of the network of, like you said, joining my Discord and meeting other collectors and chatting with them and getting their insights. There's value to me raffling off allow lists to other projects or opportunities or whatever in my Discord. I think there's always ways that artists can continue to bring value that isn't just like gamification of the art itself. But I do think, there's, I've had collectors tell me that, like, when they sell something, there's a value that isn't visible on just the transaction of the, the sale. There's other, someone will say, hey, I sold this, but that allow list you gave me, I was able to flip that and all this other, so it's really hard to like judge the true value of anything. But again, it just goes back to this idea of give as much as you can. And then when you put out art, hopefully people will support you and continue to buy it.
As an artist, how did you handle gamification, or did you not really touch it as such?
Outside of, well, I think the gamification, it's inevitable, but what I find is it's okay to do gamification as long as you really focus on being fair about it. And by that, I mean, let's say there's a drop and there's 100 pieces. You could do, 50 of that to your collectors, and that's a gamification of them owning and getting. You could do 25 of that raffled to the public and allow other people to gamify, win a chance or whatever to get that. And then you could do 25 to the public at the end and let that be. And like that to me is like a fair way of rewarding the past, allowing new people to join that still feel special to win, and then also just letting the market do its thing or something like that. But like that in essence is a gamification of selling art, but trying to hit all these different points where nobody feels like you're kind of manipulating it in an unfair way.
Yeah.
By the way, when we talk about mechanics and everything, I really liked and I bought. Do you remember Xcopy made flies?
Yep.
Small things, and I bought. Yeah. It was so cool because I bought one, I made content with them, and I won another 10 flies. Then you could burn them and receive token. And I received this, like, I minted one fly for $2 and I received $10 for burning it. So it's pretty a cool mechanic. Yeah, it's like think about it. Maybe you will create something like this because it's really cool for the collectors and for everyone, because your supply can be burned, but I still hold one just for the memory, So I have something from Xcopy because he's highly expensive, of course. So that's how I feel I'm his collector too,
Yeah. No, I've never done a burn. And just because I have a belief that the market will grow over time, and I would want those pieces for future use. And so I have it's called brinkmanestate.eth, where I recollect art or I hold X amount from my sale and I put it into that, and that's made for trading with other artists or donating it to, for charity or whatever. I donated one to a museum last week or 2 weeks ago. And I think that's like an interesting route. And basically how I did a drop like a little over a year ago with the 6529 memes labs, where I was like, here's this piece. The only way you can get it is if you trade me back any piece of my art, and that art will then go into this estate vault. And so it was like a burn, but it was awesome. I got the work back to do what I want with. And I think that's a more interesting dynamic than just destroying it, because it's essentially still burnt out of supply because I'm not going to go selling it. But it allows me some leeway into the future with it.
Yeah.
That's actually really cool. Did you limit which art you could trade in, or any of your 5,000 pieces?
Any of it, which actually worked out really interestingly because it kind of stabilized all the floors together, because someone was like, what is available across the board for less than 0.05,
And then the gamification starts.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of a sudden you said it. Like that's actually really cool. Kind of reminds me of the car industry a little bit with like the trade in, trade up thing, but it's like it's really fun.
It worked out okay. I think like about 30 something people did it. And so it was a fun way of just basically like pulling moving around pieces.
It's like there's always that one piece in a collection, and like an artist's work to me is considered one collection. You know, like I like to think about it like that, even if it's across multiple chains or multiple platforms or whatever. And there's always like the ugly eyes in the Bored Apes collection, or like Unfortunately, I guess a dark-skinned punk would be like one of them. But there's always those ones that you find fill out the floor,
Yes.
you know? And having something like this where you introduce something new and kind of extract those out of availability, that's a really cool dynamic. How do you use AI? Do you use AI? What are your thoughts? I find this like a very important question to ask every artist of note that I've ever talked to.
Yeah.
Are you
Can I add immediately, because I wanted to, I wanted to ask Bryan about the same, because I saw in the interview to oh my God, NFT Now, you said like AI is not on a good level right now, so we have nothing to afraid, and it was like a few years ago, something like that. And right now you can't even, AI is at such a level that you can't even understand is it AI or not sometimes, even on videos.
That quote will come back. I'm glad that quote came back to burn me. No, I mean, I knew it was going to get better, but and I still I go back and forth on it, but on that topic, when it comes to AI, I think AI can only replicate what we've done, and so as long as we're continuing to grow as artists, we can outmaneuver AI and make whatever we want, and it can predict only based on what we've done. And so I think that's where artists have a strength against AI, is that we're always going to be in the now until we're dead, and then AI can just replicate everything forever. But in terms of how I've used it, the first time I used it was a collab with Karn 4D back in 2022. He basically built this GAN that I fed 1,000 images of my art into, and then it spit out a bunch of kind of blobby color things, and I looked at them kind of like a Rorschach test, and I was like, oh, that one looks like a flower, that one looks like a beach, and then I added a bunch of animation on top of it. So it was like my art went in, they spit out something, and then my art added to it, and it was like a sandwich. And so that was like an interesting start to it. And then in terms of how I've used it now, I use it more like, there's sometimes I use it like I did a thing called Cloud Poppers, and I wanted this like kind of Atari looking retro thing, and I used that just for the cover art of that NFT, even though the actual NFT is an on-chain generative video game. But usually I use it as a replacement for, say, stock imagery. And so like I did a piece called Copycat that was this cat made out of hundreds of particles of little cats, and those little cats were all kind of mid-journey-ish cartoon cat outputs. And so I was able to spit out a bunch of these cats that I used as particles in this bigger piece. Or I'll use it to create textures, like, oh, I need a wooden a wood texture, or a grungy piece of paper texture, and that kind of stuff that I would usually have gone to, like, say, Google or Getty or any of these other things. I'm just making uniquely in AI as basically assets for the ideas. And so it's becoming a part of my toolbox, but I haven't gone down that path of actually selling AI outputs straight up. And that comes from an insecurity of feeling like I'm LARPing in that space to a degree, where it's like, I don't have the skills of, like, say, Claire Silver when it comes to AI generation. I'm just using basically the consumer versions of these things. And it would feel like I was, in the same way, like I did art blocks early on. I'm not a generative artist by nature. I'm an animator, but I did a generative art project. But then, that puts you in this category of like, oh, you're a generative artist because you did art blocks. And it's like, well, no, I'm a mixed media artist. I feel the same fear about AI, that if I did a big AI project, and most of them have to be large in scale by default, then I would be like put into that box of an AI artist, when I don't feel like I am one of those yet, at least.
Yeah. Have you seen that?
I like the idea of it being a part of the toolbox. I think that's a really good quote. The same way a stylist would be, same way, like, yeah, I really like that. Sorry, Talbot.
I have a Photoshop right here. I didn't code Photoshop. Like, I'm using the effects that other people coded. So it's not that different in terms of like, oh, there's still this magic thing in between me and the concept.
I agree. And I like the way that you trained it yourself. I think that, because like, that's the big question, right? Like, okay, you're using a texture. Who created that texture? Was it stolen? Was it legit? Was it this? And the idea that you fed your art into it and then use the output to generate more art on top, that's very ethical. You don't hear that much.
Thanks. I mean, it's going to be harder and harder to be ethical as things continue. But I would say the thing I use AI most for now is when I need to write an artist bio or description of an art or something like that, I'll say, give me 20 names for a piece of art that looks like this and is about this, and then it spits out a bunch. I'm like, okay, I like that word. I like that word. I use it to help me on my English side of things since I went to art school.
Oh, that's why sometimes when I go on the exhibitions, I feel like curator of the exhibition, it's a like separate type of art, because when you read all this description, you highly understand that it's not an artist who wrote it, it's curator who actually tried to understand this vision and everything, and they created a big essay, and probably artists just said like, it is how it is, something like that. So yeah, I can feel you on this.
I was curious, have you seen the new platform called Titles, Brian, in which NFT artists are in fact training models to replicate their artworks, and you're able to mint their artworks via that?
What's the platform called?
It's called Titles.
Titles? I don't know if I've seen that one specifically, but I've been approached by probably like half a dozen platforms that do the same idea, which is, hey, what if we train your art? Which again, I got that like taste out of my mouth, years ago with that other project. But I think, I don't know. I go back on this. I think like Orcan's doing some interesting stuff with Genie. I've heard there's some more in the works with some other ones, but like I get nervous about it, and like most of that essentially is an open edition, and does that count as my art? Like this artist that did Genie, for instance, like Jake Fried or Grant Yoon, they allowed people to make a couple hundred pieces of art based on their style. Do those count as their art, or is it something else because they deemed it okay? That's where I get into this kind of ethical dilemma of like, how do I quantify this, or am I just selling people the ability to like replicate my art, and then it's like kind of throwaway? I still go back to the thing. If I was to do an AI collection, I would want to have quality control over what gets minted, and like be able to say, okay, that output works, that output doesn't work. But when you go into these kind of platforms like you're describing, that quality control check is kind of switched off, and you're at the whim of whatever the output gives, similar to like Art Blocks. But at least with Art Blocks, I had control over the constraints of how crazy or wacky it could get to a degree. And so that's where I get a little nervous, is that, putting something out there and maybe I don't like it, but it's forever there. I don't know. Eventually, the thing that I think in my head is I know how to do that myself. Most of these platforms are basically just, no offense to any of these platforms, but they're taking a percentage of artist cut off their IP essentially. And they're like, hey, you get 60%, and we're going to take 40% of all this art made with your thing. Especially within the next year, every artist is going to be able to do it themselves. And I would rather just do it myself, make a collection of say 100 that I quality check and decide these are the 100 best ones that I think are that, and just sell that, versus licensing myself out to all these other things,
Mm-hmm. That's interesting to hear you, because at first I thought like you are, you're so confident in yourself when you talk about value and everything like this, it took like certain level of confidence in yourself. Then you start telling us about what you're unconfident, for example, in creating collection with AI or this. And I understood like probably you just have this high level of responsibility and you know yourself very well. So can you please enlighten us about this, how you started create your value in an art space and how you built this confidence in you, because it definitely took time. Did you use some like it's definitely not easy to collaborate with your first collection with Art Blocks and everything, and how it was built, and right now how you supporting this value of your art? Is it like media presence? Is it like what do you use? What tools do you use, or how you creating and supporting this value?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, in terms of how I think about my value, I mean, it started out small and grows outward. So starting out with one of ones, and then small additions of 20, and then art blocks here, and then an addition here, and slowly testing the waters, figuring out what the supply and demand is. The advice I got early on that I think of all the time is kind of look at your floors and see what your current value is for your base art based on, supply of 100, for instance. What's the floors across the board on that? And then sell it for maybe half of that, so that when someone collects it, they're seeing it hold its value and hopefully grow and then finding the next floor. Because every time you put out more supply, your overall value is going to probably go down unless the market expands, and we haven't really seen the market grow substantially. So you're always slowly undercutting yourself. So as long as you make sure you sell it at a point where it's a very fair value, no one's going to get upset. And I think that's a big part of it. And then the other aspect I always think about is the act of collecting. There's value in how you collect a piece of art and the story that goes along with how you got it. Whether it's I won this auction and it was a bidding war and I came out and I won, or if I won a raffle, or this was gifted by a trade, or any sort of lore you can add to the story. Because when someone collects your art, they're usually going to go share it with a friend or in a Discord and say, hey, look at this piece of art I got. I like it because it's about this. And that's up to the artist to kind of give more information on what the art is, how you made it and why you made it and all this other stuff. That's one aspect of value the artist brings to it. And then the other aspect is I got it because I bought it in 1 second before it sold out on Nifty Gateway and I got it. Those are the stories that add to the personal emotional value of collecting it. And I think that's something I'm always thinking about, is that, and why I don't do something, no offense to like rodeo, which is just the act of going button, I got it. That's not exciting enough. That doesn't feel special enough. And it goes back to the idea of, every mint to me is important and special versus this idea of abundance, and collecting it should feel special as well.
I love to hear it. That's a brilliant answer. Thank you so much. It's really, really great to hear, because you are thinking about your story as an artist immediately, And I read the amazing book, by the way, Breakfast at Sotheby's, and their creator who wrote it, and he wrote like people value art of the artists who actually suffered and everything. The price is going up immediately. Yeah. So if you have the suffering in your lore, and if you suffer young, that's the best. No one cares about suffering of old men, but if you suffered young, your art will be on top. So
I'm too old for that game.
No. But I wanted to,
Brian, do you have any suffering in your life?
So what's that?
Have you suffered?
I mean,
our favorite question.
No, I'm flooring Brian's work right now.
Suffering, but no, I didn't. I grew up in a very low to middle class Midwestern town, I think I can't compare myself to people that have truly suffered, you know. But
That's
you know, I think there's always moments in life that are scarring in some way that influence your art in various ways. But yeah, I would never make that my artist story. You know what I
Thank
mean?
you so much for this honest answer too, because you know some people trying to pretend that they suffer to be cool or something like that, and your answer I really love, and your art. You know, when I saw it, I worked also in events, and many of my events was charity events because I worked for a football club, and we created charity events for kids. And
Oh,
when I
cool.
saw on your art, yeah, it was really awesome. When I saw on your art, I was like, you know, as a former event manager, I was like, oh my God, we will definitely inspired by this type of art, you know, something like this for the event we would create and etc. So, but I don't know how it's in art field actually, because I know collectors also they like dark colors, etc., etc. Do you feel like it's harder for you to exist in this space with such a light and good art, or it's your advantage?
Yeah.
Like how you?
That's a great question, and it's something I do think about sometimes. Because when I did join the space, that the reason I have these colorful, you know, pastel happy colors was a reaction to the space when I joined it. I saw Coldy and Xcopy and Josie and Cyberpunk and Glitch and Grime and all this stuff, and I said, okay, well, that's not really me, but maybe I can do 2D animation, do this colorful stuff, play in this world. You know, Joy is another artist that was doing it since like the OG days, but like I think that's where I was like, oh, this, I'm not going to compete in this space that isn't really me. But I can use these colors to kind of draw the viewer in a way that is pleasing. A lot of my work is this like satisfying loops and it's hypnotic, and I try to do those things. But then if they want to dive deeper, usually the pieces have darker undertones about self-doubt or depression or imposter syndrome or death and all these Alzheimer's, all these things that are like heady things that are kind of bummer topics. But you know, stuff I think about and I want to talk about. But if I put it into this playful imagery, it kind of candy coats it, and it's kind of a warm blanket over a sad thought. And so I think that's always kind of the fun part of it for me, is that I can, if someone comes up and says, oh, your work's all really happy and fun, I can tell that they're basically just looking at it quickly and seeing the front of it. And if they say, oh, this is really heavy or something, then I know they're actually like reading the descriptions and seeing what it's really about. But I think, yeah, I don't know. That's always, I do sometimes, it sounds real woe is me. There's a lot of bros in the space, and they're not going to go buy happy clouds. And that's totally understandable. I find that my audience is, you know, I don't know how I would describe it, but just more art focused, more happy, more family, more 40-year-olds, people that have kids, you know, that's all totally fine. I think there's something relatable in that sense. But yeah, I think there is certainly, if you look at like the top artists in the space, they're all kind of selling that skull, glitch, grunge, punk feel, and which I think is, I collect it. I think it's cool, but it would feel fake for me to like go down that path.
Yeah. I always like to think of you as like a fairy tale maker for Web3, like you're making the next Cinderella in some of your art pieces. Like there's a story underneath it, but it all seems very happy-go-lucky sort of, unless you actually think about the story.
Thank you. No, I like that. It's the Cinderella. Oh man, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. There's that is the challenge, though. Is the stuff that does well is dark. But I do have some dark neon works, and some people do like that the most. So I try to mix it up. I think that the reason I use those colors is because it allows me to jump from dark to light to 3D to 2D to generative to AI and all this other stuff. And as long as those colors exist, it ties the whole, like Hunt Club Hero was saying, as everything I've put out is my collection. And it all connects. And a lot of the works I do use the colors or use the symbology, whether wires or clouds or diamonds and all these other. I try to connect it all so that every new piece I put out calls back to a past piece and brings attention to those previous things as well.
My next question, by the way, about the same. What is the most unusual use have you seen of your works? Because again, I can imagine it in like child's room. Okay, I can imagine it on the event. I can imagine it in AI even. You know, it's some like exhibition or something like this, and I can imagine it in therapy also. You know, using it in therapy or something like this. What is the most unusual use for your art you have seen? How people use it? Where did they put it? Or because I know, for example, for sure, some of your collectors, maybe they can, you know, buy your art and they didn't even saw that it's animated. They, you know, sometimes I feel like, because when I read articles, they put, you know, not animated art there, and I'm like, guys, I doubt that it looked like this. I better will do research. So I'm sure some people.
I don't know. That's such a unique question. I don't know the answer to it. I'm trying to think. I mean, one of the weird. I mean, I've put out some weird art over the years. Like back in 2021, I think I did vodka bottles, and like that was a fun thing to like. I designed like it was me and a lot of money, and this other guy, Mr. Y, did this project where he got Austrian vodka and had me design the bottle, and it was very silly, and it ended up being a huge headache because they couldn't ship liquor across seas, and so they had to just send an empty bottle to some people. It was a real lesson learned in like the logistics, because back in those early NFT days, it really felt like everything was possible, and then when you tried to do things in real life, you realize that there's like a lot more rules involved. So yeah, there's some funny things like that. But yeah, I don't think I've seen my art beyond like anything too crazy.
Because I saw, you know, when you made this collection with LG, everyone was putting it on TV.
Oh yeah, I mean that was cool. Yeah. I mean, yes, it was fun to see everyone's living rooms. Everyone kind of docks their TVs a little bit, and that was such a fun project. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you soon, or shoot me your message. Anybody that has a bloom, I got little pins made of the blooms that I'm sending to all bloom holders. So I'm happy to send you one. But yeah, that was
anybody one of the pieces in like their little red room or in their dungeon or in like, you know, in their barn. Like we'd like to see some creative use here. yeah, show all the freaky stuff. No, yeah, I don't know. It's always exciting when I see collectors sharing like my prints hung in their house and stuff like that. But yeah, nothing I can think of that's like too crazy.
Okay, I mean, maybe
one of the weirder things. What's that?
Maybe you wanted people to apply it somehow. I don't know.
There was, I mean, this isn't weird as much as it's a fun story. Back when I was in college, I went to school in Philadelphia, and there's this park there called Rittenhouse Square. And I would sit in the park with paintings I made and see if people would buy them off the sidewalk. And this one guy bought them, and I think it was like $50 for these each for these huge acrylic paintings. One was a tooth with a cavity in it, and this cavity is like cheering and smiling, kind of like a Nimbud. And I didn't know what happened to it. And then like 2 years ago, I made a tweet that was like, hey, I made these paintings in this park and someone bought it. I have no idea what happened to it. And then the dentist found me because someone on Twitter was like, hey, this guy was in my dentist office and saw them on the wall, and he follows you on Twitter, and he told me about this, and I own these. And he's like, can I get NFTs of them? And I was like, get out of here, man. But it was like such a funny story of like that was 16 years later, found me through social media because of this NFT world, helped him reconnect with me. And it was just really cool.
Does he still contact you? Or?
I haven't talked to him in a minute, but it was very fun. He sent me pictures of it, and yeah, he still has them in his dentist's office. That's but cool. Yeah, that was, there's a lot of art pre-NFTs where I just have no idea where it's at, because I would sell it through like this gallery in LA called Gallery 1988, and whoever bought it, was never told who bought it unless they chose to like tweet at me, hey, I bought this piece by you, or something like that. And so there's a large chunk of my art that is just like out in the ether, which is why I like NFTs, is because you can see all the different wallets. Even if you don't know who the wallet is, you know where it exists at least.
Yeah.
By the way, you talked about bear market and and bull market, and also I jumped into crypto space in 2021, and I can't see the difference, because back then I feel like what you said about art, also people was experimenting, and I can see it from the content, side, because every content creator, they was more open, if we can say so, and we actually having fun, in this space. Like we was experimenting with the content, with the audience, etc. Then bear market, and everyone become quiet, and nothing probably happened. Only some people continue to create content, etc. And now it's like boom vibes again, and you feel like everything is more commercial right now. Content creators more commercial right now. It's not the same fun as it was, and also a lot of agencies appeared who helping you create, like earn on content and something like this, but actually they build their name on you, and that's what is going on with content creation, for example. How do you feel it about art? What's happened with art during bear market? Did you enjoy this bear market? Because I, as a content creator, I feel sometimes like it was fun time, more even fun than when bull started. So how it's for you in art space?
I mean, personally, I wouldn't say, we're in a bull market in terms of the coins, the crypto coins. I mean, shout out Bitcoin, all-time high for like a minute today. Yeah, I think for the art, it's definitely not back to where it was. Talver knows, back in the Nifty Gateway heydays, everything was selling out within seconds. We're not seeing that. And that's honestly because the Degens have found meme coins. And the reason art went so crazy back in 2021 was because art PFPs weren't around yet. They didn't really kick off until the summer of 2021. So that end of 2020, beginning of 2021 was like Top Shot and Nifty Gateway art. And then after that summer became Art Blocks art. But again, it's these Degens that were treating art as meme coins and charts and all this other stuff. And they've gone off and found meme coins, which is much healthier. And so now the people that are collecting art are collecting it with a much longer time horizon for the most part. And they're just not these like kind of Degen flippers, because they have so much more to play with that's more liquid, with the exception of maybe Jack Butcher, who I think is like one of the few artists that taps into that mentality of high volume, always liquid markets. And so now, what we're seeing is brokers and loan sites and auction houses, and all these are kind of the things that make these little waves, and artists are kind of just still chugging along. But going back to what you said, I found the bear market I found more success in the bear market than I did in the bull market. Part of that's because a lot of the artists just quit when it got hard, and the people that stuck around got to see some more, our voices traveled further because there was just less people to compete with in that sense. And I think there's also just, people that are thoughtful about their supply and how they're doing things. It doesn't matter if it's a bear or a bull market. You can still, you have the trust of the collectors, and you're doing things in a way that there's still enough demand to make a living. And so I think, the people that really fell off are the ones that bought into the hype too much and took the easy route and made a big bag, and then they couldn't sustain it. And instead of working to fix that, they just called it quits, and that's, it's tough. Some of them were, bullied, and it's hard to get through this thing. It takes a thick skin to a degree in the space between collectors that ask for a lot, between scammers that are constantly trying to steal from you, or anything else. The threat of violence. It's a very scary space. So it's not. You have to be. It's not built for everyone.
Yeah,
Absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
I'm curious. You mentioned summer 2021, and I'm curious, what were your thoughts towards 888 and how he impacted the NFT industry while he was around then?
My thoughts on who?
888. I'm not sure if you remember him.
Oh, I remember. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of collectors from that era that had a lot of money, and they were buying a lot of art, and a lot of it was not, what's the word? For him, for instance, I mean, he never collected my work, so I have no ill will personally, but it was very clear that he was buying art to convince artists to leave platforms to go to what he was building. And it was a business transaction more than an appreciation in certain senses. And there was a lot of collectors that were doing. A lot of collectors went on to build their own platforms, and they used those investments in artists as a way to get those artists to drop on whatever they're building. And that's fine as long as what they're building is pro artist. The problem with 888 was he never built the thing. He only did half the path. He never built the platform.
Yeah. He's pretty infamous now in the art industry.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of people had a bad time with that platform, and it was very clearly he seemed to have issues with Nifty Gateway and was like, I'm going to go build my own, and then he got all the top artists to go sign on to that. It was a weird time. There was a lot of egos and a lot of money, and you look at those big collectors at the time and who's still building. Mondoir, he's built his own gallery. He's still active. I got to speak with him at NFT Paris. There's a lot of Pranksy, he's still active. Like, it's interesting to see who's still around, but like there's also the who like was also one of the biggest collectors, and he sold off his collection. He's kind of like retired essentially. And so it's always kind of interesting to see the path. But I think the challenge is a lot of people that bought into that 2021 hype got burned real bad because with the exception of the top 5 artists, none of that held value. And it's just a matter of how exposed they were.
That's interesting point of view.
I mean, I'm not immune to it. I had stuff that was like reselling at the height of Art Blocks because I was an Art Blocks artist. People were going scooping up secondary stuff on my SuperRare and all this other stuff. And once Art Blocks got back down to normal, my stuff found its value back to where it was. But I think all of us that were around in that 2021 hit this little weird curve of like excitement, and it's just impossible to sustain that. But you can work to keep building it. And I think that's always the thing. I think I'm so bullish on crypto art and digital art and all this blockchain art, whatever you want to call it. There's no better path for the future in my mind, and so. It's I can't understand why any artist would quit when it's so clearly the future, especially in a world where AI could take away all of these client jobs that a lot of these artists went back to these jobs that are frankly just not going to be around in 5 years when they could be building up their portfolios towards this space, which has a much better chance of being sustainable as a digital artist.
Yeah, personally, from when the artists I worked with back then, they all felt the pressure of each collector. There was a very strong opinion from each collector, which they had to try and balance out, but they never managed quite.
Yeah, well, that's because every collector sells them the same thing. Make me more money. It's very tough. I mean, thankfully, I'm very fortunate that my collector base, and part of this might be because of the art I put out and the vibe I put out, I attract good people that are my collectors, and I'm very thankful for that. I don't have a lot of collectors that are mean to me or that are like, hey, make your floors go up or all this other stuff. You know, thankfully, a lot of them are along for the ride, and I appreciate them so much for that. I think there was a lot of artists in that 2021 era that were like I don't want to call it out, but they were like embracing negativity as their mantras. And like that attracted negative collectors, and they had a bad time, and almost all of them have quit because you really, how you operate in this space is how you attract the type of people that surround you.
Yeah, I noticed almost the same, you know, if you have some values, if you have some story to say, you attract people and collectors who will appreciate your values, and they want, you know, like I am a member of collection that already dead, but like all communities still supporting founders because they just burn out, you know, but they have an amazing story of comic. They had like the best, I still think like is one of the best art in Web3 among collections, you know. So we still like, even if they burn out, okay, they like don't talk with audience properly and they made a lot of mistakes, but we're still supporting them because we enjoying this collection, you know. It made us connect with each other even more, you know. So I see some guys creating their own projects and they inviting us there, you know. It's like if you have some values, you don't need to like, you just need to find the same people around who will surround you.
No, I agree. And like my feeling as a collector, if I buy a piece of art from an artist and it goes to zero, I don't care. But if they quit or they remove all NFTs from their bio and their website and they basically pretend like it never existed, then I get offended and salty.
Yeah, like
but
that
I don't
one.
Yeah, I can't get upset if their value goes to zero. I mean, I can you know, people.
Damn.
It's not an easy thing to hold value in this space. Almost everything goes to zero, and so if any artist is holding any value or has any offers, that's a huge sign of success.
I always like to think that like the crypto market, it is determined by users, and so like it because it's all online, it's easier to like change prices, etc. Whereas if you go the physical route, you have to speak to dealers, you have to handle it all, and I feel like because there's less input involved, I feel like crypto, it's much more volatile in pricing.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's people working to like solve that problem. I forget the name of it, but last week they announced like they're going to basically work on the Sam Spratt and Punk's floor to basically always be the top bid and be like a broker in between or something like that to like keep because right now the offers on most stuff is like probably drastically lower than the current floor unless the project's like really hot at the moment. And so people are trying to like solve like how to solve that. But I'm honestly a believer in letting the market do its thing. If I throw out low ball ETH offers on things sometimes, just hoping to hit. Why not? You know, it's like if you're there to give liquidity, and you're still the top offer, it's better than a bot. And so, yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth on that. If I see someone like one of my pieces sold pretty low the other day to a ETH offer, and I was like, hey, shout out to that guy for getting a good deal. You know, that's good on him. And I can't stop that from happening as much as I wish I could. But you just have to kind of let the market do its thing. And if people get good deals, they get good deals. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I'm going to circle back to the 2021 Open Edition matter, and I'm going to speak a bit on gamification with Singular. I'm not sure if you want to describe it, but we aim to build gamification in a matter which both community and artists can enjoy. So if you want to take the stage and explain it.
Yeah, because he said he hates open editions, I kind of just like kept my mouth shut a little bit. I'm like, oh shit.
I don't hate open editions. I mint a lot of open editions. I just don't personally like to make.
We appreciate
I hate open editions, because I understood, like, right now, before I thought like it's such a good deal, you know, I will buy open edition and then I will earn something, but it's turned out that I spent a lot of money on gas. You remember the price of gas?
Yeah.
And all this
I remember
stuff. And then artists just forgot about these collections at all, you know. They just pretended that these open editions didn't exist. So
I like open editions on like mid to small tier artists, because they usually mint in that like under 100 edition range.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing too. We've so we launched this platform as like a fun way to gamify on-chain reputation. When someone logs in, they get a score based on what NFTs they minted, what they held, did they buy more during the dip, did they sell on runs, did they stake if staking was available. And they get this like on-chain reputational score when they sign in. It scans your wallet all the way back. We're tracking Solana, ETH, Base, and Arbitrum currently, and planning to add more and more data points. But then you have this score, and you're tagged to the different communities you're a holder of. We have 200 communities on there that we feel are like reputable, and we're just going to keep adding more as they come, kind of thing. So you get rewarded from those, and now you're tagged to those as a holder. Since you're a holder, or if you've been verified as a verified artist on the platform, which there are thousands now, you get to mint an open edition of something dedicated to that community. And then the price for each is $5. You get $2.50 as the artist. The community it's dedicated to gets 75 cents. 75 cents goes to a raffle to one lucky minter, and 99 cents goes to the platform. And then the more art that's created for communities, the more mints of that art happen, the more shout outs on socials for that mint happen, the community score actually goes up, and the individual user's culture score goes up. So then you have this leaderboard of all these 200 projects, like who's got the best holders with on-chain reputation, who's got the most artists, the most creators, the most supporters. And it's like this dynamic leaderboard that keeps living. And you gain points every day for your activity on chain, but you can also lose them for your activity on chain. So it's like this fun little thing. And we're noticing, like, we've had over 5,000 users now and over 1,700 accounts created now in like the beta launch. And I think about 55 art pieces as far as open editions. And yeah, it's very tough to crack that 200 range for someone who's like a smaller creator. You know, you have to you have to like infuse this gamification. You have to go on this like big marketing campaign to even get that. Most of the open editions are rounding out at like 40, 50, even though they're a lower price. And it's just sometimes it can be a little tougher to make people care about the art. A lot of the partners that are reaching out to us, like, they care about the data, but not a lot of people care about the art, which is, I mean, hopefully something we can change. Like, it's not meant to be your best work. Like you were saying, it's not meant to be the piece that takes you, you know, 1,000 hours to create. It's meant to be like a fun piece of culture, history, or
it's like a POAP.
Yes, I have an example on myself. For example, I made a photo session in Azuki t-shirt, you know, in Azuki, and I'm a fan of Azuki community. And then it was only on my X, and that's it. But then on this platform, I decided to mint it because I want to, you know, be into Azuki community even more. And people who in Azuki community, they can, and who like me, they can be, they can mint it too, you know. So it's like exchange of the energy. I don't know how to say it. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'm looking at the website now.
Yeah, and at the same money that people minted, like that I received from Mint, someone who mint my collection, my NFT, for example, I would spend it in the same singular to support other artists, you know, which is cool for me, cool for artists, cool for everyone. And also, yeah, it's like, you know, I wouldn't mint it myself, never, just because you said it. It's a responsibility, right? If if you mint in collection, you then responsible for it. But on such a fun platform, just into communities to mint it, it's a cool idea. And yeah, I feel like it's the same for every like small artist and not really small, just to be a part of community.
I mean, I'm looking at it, and the thing that I see that makes sense is that it's a hub for meme coin communities, as opposed to having, you know, 50 different telegrams. You kind of bring them all into this place, and then especially like I see like Fwog and Slurf and these kind of art-based meme coins. This is kind of, those are the ones that I think are prime for having like fun little art pieces that are kind of memifications, or like the memes that you'd see for those things minted and stuff like that.
That was a big part
makes
of
a lot of sense.
That was a big part of the bet we were making, that like these content creators that are making dope pieces for their communities, they don't have a way to monetize. And NFT projects obviously can monetize very easily. They have tons of channels, but meme coin communities, you just got to sell the token to monetize it as a team. So if you ever want to do a marketing campaign, if you ever want to hire someone, you ever want to do anything, you have to sell the token. That just looks so bad on the chart, seeing the dev sell, that it's like very tough. So if all these content creators can create dope pieces and be supported, and the community earns 75 cents every time somebody mints one, it just becomes this cool little flywheel. Hoping to take these tokens and turn them into brands, you know?
Nice. Have you connected with Rhett and Turbo?
Sadly, it's very, very tough to get a hold of a meme coin team. And usually they don't enjoy these types of partnerships. It's tough for them to find value in it so far.
I can probably connect you, but Talver knows. I mean, my first Nifty Gateway drop, I was curated on a drop by Kaitza with Rhett, who went on to make Turbo. And so he rides that line that few artists in the space do, that is both a traditional artist and a meme coin creator. It's like him and Dark Farms and maybe OSF are like the only three that I've seen do it like really well.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Really appreciate that. Yeah. I think in this phase of like growth, the more people we talk to and the more we like get the product out there, the better.
Also, as an example, again, you know, I do my Bad Singers Club, where we just sing in karaoke with guys in Web3, talking about Web3 and not only. And I want to make promo video where in anime style with Azuki artist, where Xiao and Ryzen from Azuki, it's like main characters from anime, they will sing together. You know, they are fighting usually in anime, but in my video they will sing together. And I thought, like, why? Like, I can put it on singular then, right? And some people can mint it for them, can participate in this giveaway, and I won't earn money on it, but I will spend it on like further, you know, on my next video, etc. So it's like great support for the artists and content creators as I see it. And yeah,
you know,
Brian,
it's actually a little challenging to like police IP on the platform, because we have these we have like the disclosure when someone goes to mint something, talks about like what you're allowed to mint because you're charging money for it. But I've been finding that like a little challenging. We'll get people that'll mint like Xiao and Ryzen, and it's only $5. They think it's fine, but it's not their IP. So we're actually having to like, we have to remove it off the platform. We have to apologize. Yeah, because it's
anybody can mint for that group.
Anyone who's a holder of the NFT or meme coin is allowed to mint for that group. So
maybe just do CCO ones.
Yeah, like that's essentially what's up, right? It's like either you have to speak to someone that owns a piece of the IP and use it, or you have to get permission from the team, or you have to create something inspired by but not a copy of, you know, or you have to change the IP enough that it's like your version of that character and no longer that character. And that's, it's been a little challenging, especially because a lot of the artists in the space are so used to creating fan art for NFT projects. And since it's not for sale, there's like zero repercussions, right? Then you have projects that will use a collection's main IP character to announce a collaboration of some sort, or to announce that they're giving whitelist spots to these holders. They'll make a piece of art and they'll put that character in it. And technically, you're not supposed to use someone else's IP to market your own project, but it's like this gray area that the space has allowed.
AI.
You know? Yeah,
IP,
like you can't police it.
Now's a good time to be an IP lawyer. But yeah, no, it's definitely tricky. It's one of those things, you know, like you're saying, high fan art is what I used to do prior to NFTs. The gallery show work I used to do would be like, it was for a pop culture gallery called 1988, and they'd be like, all right, this is a show of cult movie inspired art, or this is a show of Monty Python inspired art, or Rick and Morty inspired art, and you'd make the Rick and Morty art show, and like, you know, you'd have to put like the Cartoon Network copyright on the print and all that other stuff. And when I joined the space, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that kind of work in this space. You know, I think I have maybe one or two pieces that have like some like famous cats in them, but like Felix and Ren and Stimpy and stuff like that. But for the most part, I was like, I don't want to deal with that question of who owns this. And I also just don't, you know, that was, so when I joined this space, I specifically started fresh essentially and tried to find my own voice versus just making art based on other stuff, which I have no problem with. I'm a big fan of it, but not in this medium.
Yeah. Because the ethos of crypto is very much against it, right? Like ownership, decentralization doesn't.
I mean, the ethos of crypto is stealing Pepe early on, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's not wrong. That's not wrong. But then you see like what happened with Chill Guy in the space, right? Like eventually people just stopped supporting it. But because Matt's like, use Pepe. I love that you're using Pepe. All of a sudden, everyone started like
once Matt said it was cool with Pepe, that's when I felt okay to do, because I did like a fake rare and some Pepe inspired art. But I was also of that, like I have like the Boys Club comics. I was a big Mad Fury fan early on, and I got bummed out when I saw what happened to Pepe for him. But once he gave his like approval, then I was like, okay, I feel okay about it now. But there was a moment where I was like, I don't know. But I think it's definitely tricky, and there's definitely a lot of people that you know, stealing IP is a bad look for the space, because it just
the worst.
Like 2021, a lot of the hate was the environment, you know, wash trading, and everyone's stealing art and minting it. And that was like the three things that all of the animation world I came from hated about NFTs. And they still, that stigma has not worn off yet. And I think that's, you know, even though most of that is not true, the environment stuff has been fixed for the most part. Wash trading is very rare and all this other stuff. But that's still the takeaway most people get, and why most people are apprehensive about the space. And it's a really tough hurdle. And so when I see that kind of IP theft, I'm like, ugh, like the Chill Guy thing, that only propagated that feeling. That just
what
stinks.
happened with Chill Guy? I haven't heard about this story.
Chill Guy was like this meme. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You can say it, but it was a meme based on a piece of art that went viral, and the guy was not happy.
Chill Guy, yes, I remember this meme, like this bear or who it was, and he was offended that people using oh my god, this
and then people like hacked his account to say, oh, actually I'm cool with it now, and then he was like, I got hacked, I'm not cool with it, and just like, oh my god.
It's literally
the other side of things. People were like, well, this isn't even an original character. It's a mix between this and this. And it's like, oh, God.
It's literally the best that you can do in your life. Create meme that people like and force it, you know, and you stealing it from people back. Like, what the fuck was wrong with you, you know?
They tried to do the same thing with Pepe. They said like, oh, Pepe is actually based on some 1970s Argentinian talk show thing. And it's like, no, it's not. But like, anytime, I mean, that's the other side of the space, is that
would you
it's impossible to be original, because we're all just replicating things we've absorbed.
100% agree with you. Yes, we just retell stories with our words and experience, but basically, we create something completely new. But Brian, I feel like you have a lot of requests from meme tokens, meme coins to work with them. Will you work if they will suggest some, good amount of money or a good project, something? I don't know. What interests you?
I would have to be pretty down bad to say yes to that. No, I certainly trade meme coins. I appreciate them, and I think they're a valid form of gambling or whatever it is. To me, back when I was a kid, and this will date me, there used to be this website called the Hollywood Stock Exchange, where you could trade based on like the next Indiana Jones movie. I'm putting this fake money into that. I'm going to put my fake money into Scarlett Johansson or whatever. And you basically trade all of these fake movie stocks based on how they did at the box office is how you'd make money and all this stuff. And to me, meme coins is like what I used to do back when I was in like middle school on the Hollywood Stock Exchange, where you're just buying into this like temporary hype words and hoping that it's going. But yeah, in terms of me personally, I have avoided making a token of any kind, even if it's like friend tech or any of that. Like I don't want to inadvertently make a token. Truly believe that it would separate the attention away from my art in a way that would, in the same reason I said I was apprehensive. If you make a meme coin, that becomes your job forever. It never goes away.
Yeah.
You can't burn 1 million tokens. You know what I mean? You'd either let it go to zero and hope people forgive you and you move on, or you forever. And so I don't know. If I was to ever do a meme coin, I would not publicly attach myself to it. I'd say that at least. But I deep down, and feel that with NFTs, well, VP, someone's going to lose. Most of the time, everyone's going to lose. 99% of people are going to lose. With NFTs, I truly believe that there are end games for those NFTs where they do find someone's wallet and collection that they want to keep forever because they truly love it and it makes them feel something. And to me, that is an outcome that is not truly PvP. And that's why I prefer NFTs, is because there's a lot of collectors that say, I'm never going to sell this. And that, to me, is a happy ending for the game, if there is a game to it. With meme coins, no one's going to be 50 years from now being like, oh, man, I'm so glad I still got that chill guy in my wallet. It's just they're all the exception of maybe, I don't know, none of them. Maybe Pepe, I don't know. But it just like someone posted a screenshot of like the top 10 tokens 6 years ago. And like of the 10 are still relevant or something like that, And so like all these coins are going to change so much. I mean, I'm in Ethereum and probably Solana to a degree, but who's to say what's coming next? And will Solana be where the meme coin traffic is 10 years from now? Probably not. And so but will the art I make still be the art I make 10 years ago? I hope so. And so I think that's just my general mentality on meme coins. I just don't see a win, because if I was to do it, I would be making a bunch of people money. And if I tried to make money on it, I would become a villain.
Yeah, I agree with you. I recently, of course, I'm like not even close to your level of media, etc. But I do my Bad Singers Club, and people started asking, maybe we need our Bad Singer token, to share on Arena platform when we're singing, etc. And then at first I thought like, okay, maybe it's a good idea, but then I thought like, oh, come on, if you're creating token, you need to promote it, you need to work for it, like as you said. chat all your life, and I'm not ready to do this. I'm not have like this knowledge how to promote tokens. I don't want to collaborate about this token. Like, why should I then start it, you know? When I published, for example, my photo as an art, like I made, like I read the book and made photo session in this style. I feel it's right because I just enjoy it, and I want to continue with it, you know. So I don't feel like something unfair. I just really enjoy it. So I am ready to spend all my life with it. And with token, no. So I like agree with you. But if not,
just when it comes to meme coins or operations or any of these things, the thing is to think the game have an ending that you state at the beginning. If it's a meme coin that has utility, speak about when that utility ends. You know, I think it's just a matter of, you know, when you leave it open-ended, that's when you run into trouble, because that just leads to infinite speculation.
Yeah, I agree with you. But let's talk about future a bit, because we talk about your way and it's amazing. Like, I will cut this video on the parts and will put on my timeline, and also will put time points on YouTube, so people will see about what we talked like every minute or
a lot. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of points.
Yeah, that will be comfortable to watch, you know, when you drink your coffee or just when you want to check some answers on some questions. So I will do this on YouTube later, tomorrow, I think. But let's talk about future and how you will see yourself, and what's maybe your projects you're working on right now, and you can tell us, or something like this.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't think too far into the future. I try not to. I think things change so much. I only really think about like 6 months max. So, you know, coming up at this point, I think it's been teased. I'm going to be doing an NFT boxes with the Prinksy team next month, I believe. I'll be doing a new one-of-one with SuperRare sometime next month, later in the month. I'll be speaking at NFC Lisbon in 2 weeks. I'll be speaking at NFT NYC at the end of June. And yeah, there's a couple other projects in the works. I feel like I haven't put out a lot of art in the past few months because I've just been like stockpiling all these different projects I've been working on. They're all gonna come out this summer. So it's.
Yeah. Are you excited about Lisbon?
I'm very excited. I've never been, and I think it's really exciting that it's a convention that's entirely art based.
Yeah.
Which I've not been to one of those yet. I feel like art is usually the side room of the bigger conventions. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be rapid fire, because I'm going to be speaking on the main stage, and you get like a 10-minute talk.
Wow.
And I'm going to do a talk about nostalgia and unlocking core memories. And then there will be an audience participation portion that I'm hoping everybody gets to have fun with, that I'll be out in the audience with them. And then hopefully everyone will be able to take home a little trinket from it.
That sounds
oh shit. That was some alpha, wasn't it?
A little bit. I mean, don't go expecting some Beeple airdrop stuff, but you know, it'll be fun.
That's how they did CryptoPunks, bro. A random conference got you a CryptoPunk. Yeah. You never know.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous right now. I tried to get visa to Lisbon, but I couldn't get it, because I could even apply only in July, you know, on visa, so I couldn't be there. But what's next event? Let's talk about next.
Well, NFT NYC will be hopefully that'll be pretty. I love it because I live in the New York area and it's very easy for me to go to. But yeah, I'll be speaking on the main stage, doing a fireside chat with Jody, the guy who runs NFT NYC. And so that should be an interesting conversation, because you know, he's got a lot of strong feelings about, I think it'll be a fun discussion about like how artists can approach the space and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know, it should be good. And then I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I'll be doing an art residency in July overseas.
Which country is that at?
Congratulations, man! That's huge.
So keeping busy, and then also, you know, my baby turns 1 year old in like 2 weeks or in a week or so. So that's been keeping me busy too. So lots of exciting stuff.
Is that your
first one? Yep.
Cool. I got 4.
Oh my God.
I got like a little army.
Can't imagine.
Not good. My oldest is going to uni next year, so we're like,
oh my God,
we do a lot together. I feel like we're almost the same age. It's really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah.
You look like you're in your 30s still to me, so I don't get how you're.
I am in my 30s still.
You're younger than me.
So I got married really young.
Yeah.
I got married really young.
Damn.
Oh.
Still married. Thankfully.
That's the thing.
One of our team members is in New York. Well, I mean, he LARPs as a New Yorker. He's actually in Jersey. But I'm going to be at NFT NYC. So hopefully either we can catch up at a side event or I can like steal you away for dinner or something. It'd be really cool to
love
meet
that,
you.
man. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be staying in the city. I live up in the suburbs north of the city. So I'll be down getting a hotel and it's like a little staycation kind of thing. But it should be fun. Yeah,
I can't spend hotel money because I'm going to LA in July for the Azuki thing.
Oh, what's that?
But
they're doing another big event.
They're having, like their first official Azuki event since 2023.
That was LA too, right?
No, in 2023 it was Vegas. 2022 they did LA and New York.
Right. It was in LA,
and they've done like community events all over the world and stuff. But the New York event was wild. I don't know if you remember Enter the Alley.
Oh, I saw pictures of it, but yeah, I didn't have an Azuki, so I couldn't go.
That was so wild.
I was just in LA for NFT LA, and so it was fun to be back there. I haven't been there in a year since probably NFT LA 2023. But yeah, no, it was fun.
I've never been. I'm Canadian, so I've been in New York a few times. I've been to Vegas, but this will be the first time in LA.
Did you go to Consensus? Are you near Toronto?
I did go to Consensus.
Oh, nice.
I did go to Consensus.
Oh, nice. A piece of mine was shown there, which is cool. But
dope.
I love shout out to Dave Krugman and All Ships who curated it. And yes, it looked like it was a great event.
It was a great event. I got to meet some really good teams there. I had never met the AVAX team. I had never met the Polygon team, IRL. I got to meet some really good builders. That's the thing. After Denver, I really cracked into like the builder circle, I guess. I've been having a really, really fun time just talking about like ideas and protocols and like what's next and the next few years and the direction of like consumer blockchain dApps and just all this fun shit. It's been really cool. I'm not gonna lie. Before that, I was very much like an NFT, I guess maxi, and now I'm just this like tech-maxi, and it's been really fun.
No, I went to Consensus back when it was in Austin. I was very impressed. I mean, it's the opposite of Lisbon, where Lisbon's all artists. I feel like Consensus is the most business-centric, like crypto convention, and it's very professional in that way.
I think Denver was more so.
Yeah.
I think ETH Denver was even more
not been
so.
to ETH
Yeah,
Denver
very
yet. That's
like,
on my list.
Very, very builder oriented, very protocol, very like staking forward, like future forward. It was really fun.
Yeah. That's on my list. I feel like I'm doing too much traveling right now. Sometimes you get like these like conventions and you're like going to one like every month and you're just like, oh my gosh. Like but it's very fun. Like I went to Japan in January, Paris in February, now Lisbon, and then NFT NYC. It's like, ugh, I gotta take a break. But it's very fun. But it's also a lot of travel. I don't like
with
traveling.
Kids, it's gotta be wild. With like a young kid at home too, it's gotta be wild. Like your wife must hate
the baby in Paris, and that was
cool.
That was a challenge.
The safest city in the world for crypto enthusiasts.
Yeah, right. Oh my god, I was so that ledger guy got his thumb chopped off like I told my wife, and I was like, I shouldn't have told you about that actually. He used to be freaked out. We were, as far as I know, nobody at the convention was attacked at all or targeted. So it was safe. It was. Yeah, it's a little scary. Thankfully, I don't think I have now that everybody can see everybody's crypto anyways, people will see I don't have much money worth stealing. So I'm not too stressed.
Do you protect yourself somehow? By the way, we are all doxxed, and I feel like we fucked up at some moment.
Probably, yeah.
Do you feel sorry sometimes that you are doxxed? Because sometimes I feel, because I'm like, oh, come on, like
it's something
you don't.
For sure. But again, the people that are getting kidnapped have like millions of dollars in crypto, and I don't, I don't. So if they kidnap me, they'll be very disappointed. Yeah, I knock on wood. I hope that everyone stays safe. But it's definitely a scary time, and that's correlates to the bull market and all this other stuff. But yeah, no, it's definitely.
I was reading a warning to
careful about that stuff.
I was reading a warning to artists in an art GC on Twitter about how people are attempting to hack artists' Twitters to release editions.
Yeah.
There are Memecoins, like they want to release all this stuff under their socials.
Yeah.
And that's like the vector of attack to an artist.
I'm not sure
once.
Yeah.
It was a strange vector. Thankfully, I was able to nip it in the bud within like 5 minutes, because it happened while I was sitting at my computer. But my Twitter wasn't hacked, but I used If This Then That as a webhook for my Discord to pull my tweets into my Discord. And that was a site that I had used a password that had been leaked into the dark web from years prior. And they were able to get into that site and use that to push a tweet out through my Twitter of saying, I'm releasing a Brian Brinkman coin, blah, blah, blah. Like, thankfully everyone that knows me knows I wouldn't release that. And they're like, this is a scam. And I was able to delete it right away. Basically, once you go into like detective mode, like, what, how'd they get this? How are they doing this? And so I was like, okay, my Twitter's not hacked since I'm still accessing my Twitter and no one's changed my password, blah, blah, blah. I use like YubiKey and all that. And so I was like, it's got to be some sort of integrated thing. And so I just went through and started unhooking all the integrated things. And that stopped it pretty immediately.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you remember.
Then I went through those and it after I saw it, because they were tweeting out and I was deleting it, and then they tweet out again and I would delete it, and tweet out again and I delete it. And so it was like you're just like battling this like automation system. It was weird, but I had the same problem with my Discord. Since you're in the Discord, Ira, watch out. Someone will probably join in under some random name, and then a day later they'll change their name to announcement and then say, hey, I'm dropping something, and pretend there's some sort of Discord announcement thing. And then I have to go manually delete it because for some reason the way they embed the link into the text doesn't get flagged by Discord in the way it should.
Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility on someone with a following, a track record, and kind of that monetization. You got to protect your legacy, protect your followers, and protect the value of what you have released. It's got to be trying.
For sure. Huge responsibility. I mean, there's one time I got my Discord organized. It's because another artist recommended a guy to help me set up secure, not Vulcan, but the other one, Collabland. And so he helped me set up Collabland and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. But then months later, himself got socially engineered into like sharing his code with some people over video or something. And they were able to get in his thing. And he basically was the mod of like 10 different Discords, including, and they were able to put all these this thing. Nobody in my Discord fell for it, thankfully. But a bunch of the other ones he was mods of did, and people lost like tons of ETH, and it was really scary. And so it was like the person that came in to set up my security ended up being my weak link. And so now that's why I just run my Discord myself. I have no moderators. I have very big trust issues in general because I've learned from past mistakes.
Yeah, I feel that. I think we've all been in those like sticky situations with people. It's really funny. Let me ask you this, as someone who has a lot of collectors, is there any data that you would want to know about your collectors that you struggle to get access to, or that you have to fish for, or that you pay to collect?
Their emails.
Oh,
Yeah.
If they're willing to give it out. Because I mean, that's if the biggest problem artists have right now is letting collectors know about stuff. And the algorithm suppresses me on Twitter to where probably 80% of my collectors don't see my tweets unless they really go viral that day. And then my Discord probably only captures another 20% of my collectors, if that. Most of my collectors aren't going to go get on Discord. And if they do, they've probably suppressed at everyone at this point. You know, I do that for almost every Discord I'm in. And so you're not seeing the announcements. And so, you know, how do I reach them? I have an email list of like, you know, 300-400 emails that, because when I do like raffle giveaways on my Twitter or on my Discord, I'll say fill out this Google form, and then there's an optional entry line for your email, and I capture that slowly over time, or I ask people for it. And what I find is when I send out a mass email, which I do maybe quarterly rundown of things I did over the past quarter, I haven't done in a while, so the open rate is like 70 to 80%. It's much higher capture rate of attention because, you know, we look at our email, each email we get, versus like any other platform we're on, where we're just kind of looking at what's being fed to us most recently. And so that's the thing, you know, if I could tap into, and there's some platforms that have that ability, perhaps, whether it's maybe One Hub NYC is building, because anybody that signs up with for like an NFT NYC ticket probably gave them their ETH wallet and their email address, and so they probably have like a pretty good database. Maybe Deca or Nifty Gateway would probably have a great database of that kind of stuff. But like artists don't have access to that stuff readily, and so, you know, and there isn't really a simple solution to it. But like if I could email all of my collectors and let them know about a drop, the response would be so much higher, you know. So
how would you feel about on-chain communication? Have you ever been pitched any of these like concepts of on-chain?
The challenge is making sure like any sort of built to do it is just another place that collectors are probably not going to go visit enough or frequently. You're still only going to maybe capture like 20% of those people. It's got to be something like, I don't know. It's got to be something they're already doing.
I had this idea once of airdropping a newsletter NFT to people that would update every week, and it would change like, and I think this came to me after playing Generative Dungeon, like years ago, right? I don't know if you remember the game when it launched, like you could play directly on the NFT on OpenSea. And it like opened my eyes to the fact that, you know, anything on a website can be on an NFT. And then I was thinking, what if you send someone like a video message that would update every week, you know, the latest, the news, and then, because the one place people are checking is their wallet, you know? I feel like that's the one common place everybody is, you know?
The more they collect, the further it goes down the list. The trick would be having it auto destruct in airdrop so that it goes to the top of the list. You know?
That's actually very possible.
So like it's it would be a little costly and some gas, but you could do it on an L2 or something where it like destroys itself and resends out the next one, or whenever you have a new message, it destroys and resends that message. But you know, that would at least make it show up first on the list as a notification.
And you get the little alert on your Coinbase wallet or Rainbow wallet or Rabby wallet or whatever that you just received the new NFT.
If you just update the metadata, it wouldn't update the receive.
Guys, you become, you know, I feel like if I will leave you alone, you will start talking like AI on some yo language, you know, you already talking about some smart stuff. But let's back to the artists and give them like three advices from you at the end of our live stream. 3 advices for the artists who just, you know, trying to create something good. What would you say? Any advice?
My advice to artists, and well, one, I did a talk couple years back, I think if you Google like YouTube NFT in America, I did like a 15-minute talk where I basically give all my advice for new artists I can. But the big core concept of it is dividing your time 3 ways. 1/3 of it has to be spent creating art and making art that you love to make, not just art that you think will sell, but because if you do become popular, you're going to do that art forever, and make sure it's something you enjoy the process of. The second part is spending 1/3 of your time building marketing materials for the art, whether it's upcoming drops or showing off past works. Spending just as much time creating social media content about the work, thinking about how, again, we talked about it earlier, when you give someone a piece of art, what are they going to tell the next person they show it to? You have to help give them that content and context about the art. And then the third part is spend 1/3 of your time in the community, connecting with collecting other artists if you can afford it, but retweeting, commenting, building trust in the space. If you're a new artist, it takes like probably, when I started, it took about 9 months before people built trust in me and really started to collect me and support me. That usually is the case because most artists come in and try it out and then they quit. You have to build that level of trust, and that comes from being active in the space and showing a authentic interest in it. And so in your time in that way, that's been my kind of mantra. Most artists probably want to spend 90% of their time creating, but that not having equal amount of time on marketing and community will hurt the chances of success.
Yeah, you don't have to even. Yeah, you don't have to cut off any ears or anything. No suffering needed in that guide.
Yeah. Actually, I'm telling the same to creators, because just creating good content doesn't, move you to anywhere, because creating content and promoting it, it's 2 separate work, and you need to do both. Like no one will do that, So you always need to work on two this ways. So yeah, I highly agree with you, and supporting community and people around you is probably the best way how to build trust. So brilliant advices. Thank you so much. And what we're doing at the end of every stream, asking you questions like a quick blitz. What you will choose? Don't need to explain something in a long way. Just choose full centralization or full decentralization.
Wait, say it again.
Full centralization, like everything centralized, or everything decentralized in the world.
Well, I would prefer decentralized, but I don't hate centralization either.
Okay.
Somewhere in between the two.
Oh, between you can choose, but okay, we got you. Full doxing for everyone. Everyone is doxed with documents, even or undoxing. Undoxing. You can be undoxed.
Oh, I think it should always be a choice. Undoxed.
Yeah, agree with you. Okay, and last one is we asking our guests to record message to themselves in a year, and we will put this you in this big in this big window, and a record message to yourself, and then maybe the year after you'll back to this video and we'll watch how you talk with yourself.
Oh, okay. Hi, Brian. This is a message from a year ago. I hope that you're doing well. I'm excited that Bitcoin is now over $200,000 and Ethereum is still at $2,000, but that's okay because people are still buying NFTs. And I hope that you've made some progress in your goals to get your art seen in different places. I don't know.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Have fun.
Thank you so much. And we hope if Ethereum will grow up as well. And it was.
I don't know. Here's my hot take. You ready for it? I think Ethereum should always be $1,000. It should be a stable coin. Money off the DeFi on it. But if NFTs and art are going to succeed, Ethereum can't be $10,000. It would make gas too expensive.
Somebody turn the microphone off. Somebody turns the microphone off.
My microphone's off?
No, someone turn it off, please.
I turned it a bit lower because I didn't want.
Hey, I would love it.
We can hear how you.
I know.
Sorry.
You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying here. We're talking about NFTs being back. I wonder why. Maybe it's because Ethereum's cheap again, and it's easier to move it around and transact. But you know, we all want to make some money. Don't get me wrong.
It's funny. I have like
in terms of it'll become all twos if it goes to 10K.
I have like the complete opposite view. I'm not going to lie. I feel like to secure the network, to maintain its relevancy, to keep people using ETH and building on ETH, the price has to go up because builders are going to follow the price and users are going to follow the builders. And if they don't increase the throughput and they don't actually like increase the chain enough where having the price go up doesn't mean you're paying $150 gas to perform a function.
If they can update the protocol, yeah, then I'm okay with it. But I do think, well, if someone has to pay $200 to mint a 50, which we did in 2021 foolishly, it just destroys the ecosystem. So it's got to be.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would say the $5,000 range is maybe the sweet spot.
If the throughput is good enough and the gas limits are good enough that you can have a transaction run through.
But when's that new Ethereum protocol update coming? I know they announced some like updates, but
they did They did the Pectra upgrade. That's done.
Yeah.
They were able to, and now with this new leadership at the ETH Foundation, they're on this like mission to increase the usability of the chain and increase throughput 100 times in the next 2 years. So
that's cool.
Yeah, they've already a whole bunch of the validators got together and they've raised their gas limits. Just after this new Pectra upgrade, it makes it possible to raise your gas limits now because there's more bandwidth available on the chain. So technically, there's like a good movement going on right now. The next one I think is Osaka in a few months, but they're changing this whole thing. They're going to try to get like 3 out every year and then do some smaller independent ones. Like it could be the renaissance and reformation of ETH right now. And it could be like its last attempt at not dying. I guess we'll find out.
Sure. Hey, if Ethereum goes to 50K, it'll make all of my art sales look, 25 times higher to people.
Funny part is, like, as ETH goes up, and if they're successful with this plan, it'll become more deflationary, and it could be like, I don't know, 50. I think 50K. If you look at what the market cap would have to be, that's like probably 100 years down the line. Unless adoption grows so fast, it doesn't matter. But their new plan is now improve L1, increase blobs, and like improve UI. So if they're able to do all these things, 10K is definitely not out of the question.
I really like how our friend Monstera wrote a tweet, it was year 2045 and finally ETH is 10K and finally we can buy 1 Starbucks coffee for 1 ETH,
Oh my God. Yeah, we have to outpace inflation, we have to outpace inflation.
That's the hope.
I remember when the FTX refunds came in and people got more than they had because like when FTX collapsed, there was a certain price of ETH, and when the refunds came in, it was cheaper, and they were able to buy more ETH with their refund after like all those years. I think that was the funniest shit ever because
that happened like a week or two ago.
Like a month ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a little wild. I'm not gonna lie. I think a week or two ago, ETH was like breaking out of that bubble. That $1,600 death spiral we were in,
Yeah, I feel like when ETH has a heavy tank, that's when it picks up again. I'm not sure if you remember 2016, there was a huge, or 2017, there was a huge crash in ETH, and then next minute it's just shooting up, skyrocketing.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
When I joined the NFT space, ETH was about it was like $200, and then it crashed down to $100 like a month later, and I was like, oh no, it's over.
Yeah, it's funny how the time in the market kind of changes your perspective, right? Whereas a lot of the participants that are here now, they either came in at $4,000 ETH or they came in at $3,000 ETH, right? There aren't a lot of people that bought dips or bought like the FTX Luna collapse or even bought like 2019, 2020. Everyone's like a 2021 entry. Oh, thank you. Hey, okay, this is really cool, Brian. You're gonna like this shit. So, I got a hat. This is from the Department of Agriculture, yield-bearing assets. So, I bought this for $100. Every Friday, all the money that they collected goes into yield farming. Every Friday, there's an unannounced 10-minute window where you can tap the hat and claim your yield for that week. And it's like, awesome. It's the new Ponzi. So now we're farming. And if you don't tap it in the 10 minutes, you lose your yield for the week. It's gone. Wait.
Looks good.
Okay. How's the dad hat? Live unboxing.
By the way, Hunt, let's invite them on the show. They need to tell how they made this promotion and everything. It was brilliant. It was really brilliant.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. This was like a really fun thing to participate in.
Yeah, it's like a Bitcoin miner on your head.
Right? Like, I don't know, why not experiment with some shit? And like, they've been doing these either NFC or like PBT tokens and like merging the physical and digital for a little while, but I never saw anything like this where it was a yield-bearing physical asset. I thought that was really fun. No, I'm not paid to promote them, by the way. I literally paid money to get it. but it's cool. I like it.
I dig it. That's really fun.
Yeah. That's why I like Web3, you know, for fun stuff like this, when we can enjoy something new and mint it all together and then enjoy the result. It's awesome. So, yeah, guys, it was such an amazing convo. Brian, thank you so much. And really, really, in every aspect that we talked, I received such a pleasure to hear your opinion. So thank you so much for your time, for everything. By the way, guys, don't forget to connect on the points like with people who Brian promised us to connect. And Brian, we you know, it's our wish. We talk about this all the time almost. We talk about Sam Spratt. It's our Roman Empire, you know. So if somehow you can tell them about that, some guys doing this stream, you know, it would be us. No pressure.
Oh, yeah, I'll probably see Sam in Lisbon.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Nice to meet you, bro. It was definitely a pleasure. Hopefully we can talk soon, and then
hit me up when you're in New York.
Yeah, I think it'll be really dope. I'd love that.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you again for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian. Bye-bye. Bye, guys. Have a great day in the evening.
We're still live.